This episode is brought to you by GM Genuine Parts and AC Delco. Get the most out of your vehicle with GM Genuine Parts and AC Delco original equipment. The only parts designed, engineered, tested, and backed by General Motors. You can find your perfect fit for most makes and models and choose from 3 tiers of parts, including GM OE or gold and silver aftermarket parts. Visit gmparts.com for more information.
This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. With me are my good friends, Jesse Garcia, my co-host. Jesse's chair of the Suffolk County Republican Party, vice chair of the state Republican Party, and county chair of Suffolk County Party, and Eric Levine, noted attorney, commentator, political analyst, much quoted these days in the New York Times, other publications, and about to do a virgin voyage on CNN.
No, I've been on CNN before.
Forgive me, you've been on CNN.
I've lost my virginity.
Before.
I'm sorry.
Okay, he's lost his virginity with respect to CNN. Let the record show. All right, I want to set out a theme for today that I think may be relevant to most, or if not all, of the topics we'll get to. And that is, in the words of George Santayana, the great writer and philosopher, who said, in essence, those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. And so let me begin by saying, I think right now, as we sit through what's going on in the world stage, both internally and domestically, we're forgetting the lessons of history. We're giving up on common sense. There were lessons learned and now they're being forgotten and ignored. And this is very, very dangerous for the success and survival of this great country of ours. I want to begin by talking about being overrun by illegal immigration. Now, I'm for legal immigration. Immigrants have made great contributions to this country. What I'm against is a disorderly, chaotic, illegal running of the border and letting everybody in, regardless of any background checks, health checks, what their criminal records were in the past, whether they can make a contribution to this country, whether they're affiliated with cartels or gangs, whether they're human traffickers. We don't know who these people are. We should not be letting them in. If you want a current example of a world that's being overrun by immigration that's uncontrolled, look what's happening in Europe, where you have whole sections of England and France and other European countries overrun by immigration, overrun by people who do not adhere to the culture and the values of the larger population that's letting them in, and have set up their own little citadels where even the army and the police are afraid to go in. They're self-governed by their own culture from the old world, and this is very dangerous. And France and England and other European countries are in a prospect of losing the national culture, the national identity. Immigration should never be allowed to do that. People are entitled to the national identity. Jesse, what say you?
I completely agree with you. I believe that the Biden administration's border policy, or lack of a border policy, is a complete and utter failure. I think we're seeing that now in the streets of New York City. We're seeing it where a sanctuary state and a sanctuary city such as New York and New York City are now saying that they're not able to deal with this issue. Now they're trying to spread this to other communities that are not sanctuary counties or anything like that. Suffolk County, Nassau County being one, even up in the North Country as well. There are very simple items here. And let's just not also forget the hypocrisy here. These are people who are unvetted, illegal migrants that have not been required to, conduct any COVID tests or take vaccinations, yet they're going to be allowed to go into our schools. And while we as parents of children are held to a different standard. That's the problem here with the Democratic progressive philosophy, is that it's hypocritical. They change the rules, whether it be election rules or hearing rules in immigration and in attendance here on a regular basis. Listen, my heart goes out to those people who are seeking a better life, a newer life, a life of safety and possible prosperity. My father did this when he ran away from communist Cuba and defected to the United States. He also did it the right way. He did it with a legal process that was set forth, and he went through the tests that needed to be done here, and the naturalization process. That's what we're all asking. Let's close these borders. Let's enact, whether you like it or not, some of the border policies that worked under the Trump administration that saved us from this crisis and saved cities like New York City from this crisis, and also are going to save communities here in Suffolk, Long Island, and throughout the state of New York and throughout the middle of America. Because right now, as we've said, we are all border states because these unvetted migrants are being shipped to all communities and now are being placed as a burden. The money is not there, the resources aren't there, and it's a burden on our law enforcement, and our health services, our educational services. The list goes on and on. Let's do it right. Let's shut the border down. Let's vet these migrants, and let's move forward in a proper and orderly fashion.
Well said. Eric.
Yes, I think to your point about legal immigration, I happen to think that we should not just have legal immigration. I think we need to expand legal immigration so that we are inviting the best and the brightest from all around the world. And I don't think it's any coincidence that the two greatest civilizations in the history of the world are Rome and the United States. And both those civilizations were predicated on immigration. Both those civilizations were predicated on being bringing in the greatest minds and the greatest entrepreneurs and the greatest thinkers in the world at the time and today. And those civilizations grew and became great. And so I think we want to continue to bring in the best and the brightest from around the world. But we get to decide who comes, how they come, and when they come. And until such time as the law has changed, the law must be enforced. And right now, the law is not being enforced. And why is that? The original reason was the Democrats want the issue. The Democrats want to be able to accuse Republicans who want to secure the border of being racist, xenophobics, Islamophobes, all those horribles, as a way to advance their electoral victories. If you look at the Biden administration in 2009 through 2011, President Obama in 2009 to 2011 didn't just have a majority in the House and a majority in the Senate. He had a supermajority in the Senate. He had over 60 senators. He could have passed any legislation that he wanted. All he had to do was propose immigration reform. But he didn't. He didn't propose any immigration reform. Why? Because he wants the problem, not the solution. Now you advance forward to the Biden administration. They don't have the 60 votes in the Senate. It's very difficult to pass immigration reform. But at least you can maybe continue some of the policies that had been successful with the prior administration. But with the Biden administration, he has made a calculated decision. You can do the Clinton model or you can do the Obama model when you're up for re-election. The Clinton model, of course, after you get your clock cleaned in an off-year election, is you look to expand the base. You move to the center. You try and bring in more people. Or you can go to the Obama model, which after you get your clock cleaned in a off-year election, you sprint to your left. You double down on your radical base, and you try and solidify that base, and you try and get out that vote. And the way you do it is by implementing policies that appease the radical left of the party. And that is what Biden is doing. Now, one of the arguments that Biden can say is, unlike Clinton, unlike Obama, I didn't have my clock cleaned in the off-year election. Donald Trump helped me win. So we're going to continue. We're going to continue doing that. We're going to continue to call every Republican a MAGA Republican. We're going to tie every Republican to Donald Trump. And we're going to double down on the radical left progressive agenda, which calls for open borders, no border, no country. And you would think, though, the radical left, who views the United States as systemically racist and evil, that they'd all be rushing to the southern border with big signs that say, stay away, stay out, stay back. This place is evil. You don't want to be here. But no, they want everybody to be able to come in.
You see a lot of people running to Venezuela or to Cuba or to or North Korea or to China.
China or to Russia. Who's immigrating to these places? Of course, nobody. Nobody. Everybody wants to come here because this still remains the greatest civilization in the history of the world, still the greatest country in the history of the world. It still presents opportunities that no other country has ever presented to its citizens and residents. People want to come here. So, but the Biden administration is doubling down on the radical left. They need that base in order to win. But now it's coming, the chickens are coming home to roost. Even cities like New York, Mayor Eric Adams is standing up and saying this immigration issue is going to destroy our city. And he's calling for 15% cuts over a year across the board, including law enforcement, education, sanitation, things that go truly to the quality of life in our city, in order to be able to house and feed and accommodate people who have come here illegally.
They should not be here.
Exactly.
It's as simple, Jesse. As far as I'm concerned, I'm the grandchild of immigrants.
As am I.
I am saying to you, lawful, organized immigration is wonderful when we make the decision, but not to have our borders overrun, not to create terrorism threats and drug cartel threats and possible Islamic terrorism threats. Hundreds of Chinese of military age have snuck in, people from all over the world. How are you going to put people in classes? The teachers can't speak 6, 8, 10, 12, 20 different languages. So you're going to be throwing back our kids educationally. The whole idea is preposterous. As Jesse, you pointed out, our medical system is not capable of sustaining this. Our economic system is not capable of sustaining this. And as Eric just pointed out, we're making these budget cuts that Adams is talking about. It's going to drive people away from New York. The law-abiding, tax-paying, revenue-producing, job-creating population is going to leave. It's doomed to failure. Even if we close down the border at midnight tonight, we still have an enormous problem of millions of people here, and how do you integrate them and take care of them? It's unfair, it's foolish public policy, and it's dangerous, and it's got to be stopped. Now, let me switch gears, gentlemen. It was just announced by Speaker McCarthy of the United States House of Representatives that there's going to be an impeachment inquiry against President Joe Biden. Now, this is my view on this. I think there's more than sufficient evidence to say that there's a culture of corruption that surrounds President Biden and the members of his family. I'd still like to know why these people were getting tens of millions of dollars, what their skill set was, what their deliverables were, as the business people would say. What did they give to get the money they got? And Biden very smugly says, well, where's the money? Well, maybe, Uncle Joe, the money is in your houses. Several houses that you own, multi-million-dollar properties that you couldn't afford on your government salary because you've been on a government salary forever. Maybe this is worth of inquiry. Maybe you said you knew nothing about your son's business interests, but he was flying on Air Force Two, and you were meeting with and having dinner with and on phone calls with his business associates. Maybe you jumped off to the Ukraine a couple of days after the Ukrainian business people indicated they need some help, having phoned Washington, and the guy who delivered the goods and finding the independent prosecutor was Joe Biden, and he bragged about it before the Council of Foreign Relations. Maybe this is worthy of an investigation. Maybe we should stop kidding ourselves that Joe Biden knew nothing, didn't participate in the profits, and is an honorable man. But this is worthy of a real investigation. The advantage of what he's done now, that is Speaker McCarthy, in calling this an inquiry, is it broadens the subpoena power of the Congress. The disadvantage is the expectations are going to become very, very high, what they're going to be able to deliver. Everybody keeps saying on the Democratic side, and the apologists in the media, you know what they say? They say, well, where's the direct evidence? Anybody knows anything about the law knows there's direct evidence, which is testimonial knowledge, that is, you saw something, or documents that establish something, but there's also circumstantial evidence which convicts people every day in the courts, which is overwhelming. As Senator Cruz has pointed out, it's an old lesson from law school. If you go to sleep and you look out the window and the ground is clear, and you wake up the next morning and you see snow, then you have a reasonable suspicion by circumstantial evidence that it snowed. even more so, if you look out at the grounds and you see footsteps, you can come to the conclusion not only did it snow, but somebody walked by in that snow. Circumstantial evidence is more than enough. And I respectfully submit to our listeners, you have a lot more circumstantial evidence about the corruption of the Biden family and the influence peddling than you ever had against Donald Trump. And I'm no Trump apologist. What say you, Jesse?
The way I look at this is that the Democrats and the progressives have weaponized different institutions of government, and they've also weaponized tools and assets of the Congress. I believe that impeachment is one of them. I believe, as you pointed out, that the evidence that possibly is mounting with the Biden family has far exceeds that in which it involved the January 6th issues that they indicted Donald Trump on, and of course
the phone call,
the Ukrainian phone call.
Right.
That
the perfect phone call.
Especially if you took that phone call and then you compare it to what Biden said, basically 2 years earlier or 3 years earlier, where he said he threatened the Ukrainian people with the lack of billions of dollars in aid if they did not fire one of their prosecutors. I believe that the Democrats, unfortunately, have weaponized and maybe desensitized to the American public the tool of impeachment. However, that being said, impeachment for me is not a tool that I would use first and foremost. I think that that if, as you said, the Speaker was very clever in how he did it by making an inquiry so that it broadened his scope. Because we know that the Department of Justice, the Biden Department of Justice, the FBI, and all those involved in the official capacity and leadership in those departments have been stonewalling, and the oversight committee and those committees that have been investigating this issue. Also, I got to believe that this possibly may be one. It will be an opportunity to have more whistleblowers, like two more than the ones that, like, the IRS have already testified openly in court of their free will about this. It may give us more information, and also perhaps it will also jog the Democratic leadership where they understand in the Senate and in the House that there's going to have to be, if you want to avoid this, maybe it's a tool to get them to come to the table and address major issues that Americans are dealing with, this economy, education, the border crisis. So I believe there's a bunch of different benefits that come here. While impeachment's not the first thing that I would want to go down, I believe that, as you pointed out, and you're the judge here and you've seen this, there's more evidence here, suspect or otherwise, and that has been through testimony, that seems to be that there's more of a problem here of corruption and a culture of corruption with the Biden family than there was under the two previous efforts done by the Democratic majorities in the House of Representatives.
All right, we have to take a break. Eric, when we come back, I want to get your thoughts on this. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia, the Republican Party, Eric Lane, distinguished attorney, political commentator, and essayist. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. We'll have a short break, and we'll come back. And, Eric, I want to get your thoughts on this impeachment inquiry.
If you're having problems with your septic system and you're tired of spending so much money each year to have it pumped, then SeptiClean is the answer for you. SeptiClean is an advanced, specially formulated blend of bacteria used in the treatment of home and commercial septic systems. The breakdown of waste in your system relies on biological activity of naturally occurring bacteria. SeptiClean restores the natural biological process in your septic system and boosts the existing biological activity. SeptiClean is completely safe on all plumbing and can help prevent expensive emergencies in pumping. SeptiClean has approximately 6 to 100 times the bacteria count of other leading off-the-shelf brands in a 1-year supply. SeptiClean comes in a water-soluble pack, which you flush down the toilet once a month with no mess or stress. Save time, money, and maintenance on your septic system. Find SeptiClean at Emporium True Value Hardware on Main Street in Sag Harbor, or visit micro-tab.com. That's micro-tabb.com. micro-tabb.com.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
How does PwC take your company to the leading edge? They bring the sharpest minds in tech to your team, so you can bring the ideas that will transform your business. They're passionate about your industry, so you can walk into any room with every advantage. And they're with you every step of the way, so you can know you're headed in the right direction. PwC builds for what's next, so you can get there now. Get started at pwc.com/us/leading edge.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Welcome back. This is Let the Record Show. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party and noted attorney, political commentator, and essayist Eric Levine. When we took our break, we were talking about the impeachment inquiry. I've had my 2 cents in. Jesse's had his in. We'll now give Eric Levine his dollar in. Your turn, Eric.
Yeah, so to me, the question is, what's best for the country? There's no question that the Democrats abused and dumbed down the impeachment process. It was really quite grotesque. And then the question is what they're doing now with the Republicans doing now with President Biden. Is this tit for tat, or is there really something there? I agree also that there's substantially more facts to support an impeachment inquiry of President Biden than there was for the first impeachment of Donald Trump. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's the smartest political move. There's no way, even if he is indicted in the House, that he's going to be convicted in the Senate. I mean, you need 67 senators to vote to convict. And that's just not going to happen. There are only 49 Republicans. And even if you have a videotape of Joe Biden accepting one of the big checks from Burisma at a dinner in his honor for corruption, the Democrats are not going to remove him from office. They're just not. So is this the wisest road to go down? Now, I happen to think it's very important that the American people have transparency and they learn more facts as to what went on with the Biden brand, as it's so called. But I would suggest perhaps maybe a different avenue, and that would be to impeach Merrick Garland. Because I don't think there's any doubt that Merrick Garland is now a political hack who has weaponized the Department of Justice and including the FBI, and has been doing the president's bidding and doing the Democrats' bidding by weaponizing the Department of Justice. If you impeach Garland, part of the impeachment process will be, what has he done to cover up such investigations like the Hunter Biden investigation? What has he done to cover up the Biden corruption, the corruption of President Biden? So you get that information anyway, but you don't run the same political risk of empowering Biden when you may not even get enough votes in the House to impeach Biden. And then you have really strengthened Biden, and that's a real risk. Because if you're looking at some Republicans who are in swing districts, many of them in New York, they're going to have to be looking over their shoulders at their reelection if by voting to impeach Biden, do they imperil their seats? They may not go down that road. And if you're not going to get enough Republican votes to impeach Biden, all you have succeeded in doing is empowering President Biden, giving him cover to say, you see, there was nothing wrong. This is just those MAGA Republicans coming at me again. You got to reelect me to protect yourself from them. You mitigate that risk if you impeach Garland, and you can get the same information through the subpoena power by getting it to the underlying crimes that he's trying to cover up, in my opinion.
All right, so let me say I both agree with you and disagree with you. I agree with you that there are political risks for Republicans to do this. I agree with you that Garland is worthy of impeachment. I agree with you that Mayorkas, even though he didn't say it today, but we've talked about it previously with Jesse, that Mayorkas is worthy of impeachment for his failure to protect the border and his lying to the Congress about the border being secure and nobody's coming through. So I understand that. But this is the issue. And Jesse's probably the best of the three of us to comment on this. A large number of voters, significant enough to impact, I think it was, Jesse, 6 states, and probably less than 50,000 votes or 80,000 votes could have moved if they had known about the laptop from hell that Miranda Devine talked about, which was suppressed by the media and suppressed by the Justice Department and kept secret by the FBI all those years. People would have voted differently if they knew the stink of corruption surrounding Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and the other members of the family, and that could have turned the election differently. So by having public hearings and getting this out, they can get the word out to the world. And by the way, you can cut political commercials showing people telling the truth about where the money was passed and what it was done for.
No, but my point is that you can get all that by and mitigating the political risk by impeaching a president by going after the attorney general.
Nobody's. My humble opinion is, and you may very well be right, there's political risks. Nobody's going to pay attention to it. You and Jesse and I, as political wonks, are going to pay attention to it. But if the average person to pay attention to it, it's got to be focused on Joe Biden and what he did as vice president and president. What say you, Jesse?
We've spoken on this show about about the impeachment of Mayorkas and Garland repeatedly because of the problems that are real world of what they've done in weaponizing and ineffectiveness of their departments in which they lead. There's going to be political risks in anything. However, with the Garland and with Mayorkas, you can see, I mean, the big enchilada is the president, and everyone's going to pay attention to that, and everyone's going to give that coverage. But I also do believe that that people will pay attention because of the current crises we have. If impeachment proceedings are brought, rightly so, under Mayorkas, because of the impact it's having, not just in New York City, but in New York State, but in border communities throughout this state, throughout this country, excuse me. Garland also, I think that there's been enough testimony there also to demonstrate and shine a true light on the weaponization and the politicization of the leadership of the Department of Justice and how there are multiple standards, not only double standards anymore, in my opinion. There are multiple standards of justice here under the Biden Department of Justice, one for Biden, one for average Americans, one for the business community that's close to Biden, one for the business community that wants capitalism to thrive, and those of us who are Republicans and are true to our convictions and principles. So I believe that there is benefits politically to everyone, but we all go back to the same call. I do think it may be easier with Mayorkas than Garland, as opposed to the president, to securing a large number of senators in the impeachment conviction in that court under our Constitution. I do believe that would be a place where we could see some bipartisan movement. On the president, no. I think that even if the House, you're right, you catch him with cash going into his pockets, on video, on whatever, they'll say it's a deep fake. They'll say a deep fake, and the Senate won't convict. That's because the Democrats have watered down and basically made the impeachment process a joke in their previous attempts.
Yeah, but if the goal is to learn about Joe Biden's corruption, impeaching Mayorkas doesn't get you there because that's a completely different set of facts. That's just complete and utter incompetence by Mayorkas, and he's a liar, and he should be removed from office. But if the goal is to find out about the Biden corruption, bribe taking, influence peddling, Foreign Corrupt Practices Act violations, if that's the goal, that's why you go after Garland. You can go after both, yes. But if you want to get to that as well, you go after Garland, and I think you mitigate the risk of empowering Biden by strengthening Biden. If you don't get enough Republicans to vote to impeach, and B, it's going to go into the Senate to die. So I don't know. I just at that point I don't know where it gets you. If the goal is to learn the facts, you can get them by impeaching Garland, and you'll have fewer risks.
Well, I want to switch gears again. So, You pick up the papers, you turn on the radio, you turn on the television, and you hear that we're now giving $6 billion to the Iranians in exchange of hostages, that this is supposed to be a wonderful pronouncement. You know, we're going to have peace in our time. The Iranian threat of nuclear-armed terror state is mitigated or eliminated. It just makes my eyes bleed, my head explode. The lesson we have not learned. We are doomed to repeat the failures of the past. The Iran deal was always wrong. It was morally unacceptable. It was an illegal act by the Obama administration. It should have been an unconstitutional act. It should have been a treaty, not a side deal. They've resurrected it. There's secret negotiations going on as we speak to do all kinds of deals and move all kinds of money all across the world to help the Iranians. Are we totally out of our minds? When the Iranians tell you death to America, death to Israel, and set up all these terrorist groups in the Mideast and have assassination contracts against Pompeo, the former Secretary of State, Bolton, the former UN ambassador, and a scatter of other people. They stopped an assassination in Georgetown against a Saudi diplomat. I mean, why don't we take these people?
Foreign minister.
Right.
Jabir.
Why don't we take this stuff seriously? Eric, you're the expert on Iran in this session. Tell me what you think.
Your question is this insane?
Yes.
The answer is yes.
Okay.
This is insane.
End of discussion.
Yeah. So remember what you have the Obama-Kerry cabal going out, fanning out to the world at large, speaking to the American people, speaking to Congress, speaking to Europe, speaking to Israel, speaking to our Arab allies, telling the same lie over and over and over again. This is to block all paths to a nuclear weapon. That was a lie. The JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal, created a legal path to a nuclear weapon. This is to moderate their behavior and make them good international citizens. Once they got their money in the first time, all they did was fund their military, their terrorist network, expanded their hegemonic goals in the region. We were told that there'd be anywhere, anytime inspections. But what they didn't tell us was that military sites were never to be inspected. So I give you 3 guesses, and the first 2 don't count, as to where they developed their nuclear programs. Of course, on nuclear sites, on military sites. So now what do we have? We're going through this, we're just recycling the same lies. Antony Blinken, who may be the single most incompetent human being to ever be Secretary of State, actually stands in front of the American people and says, yes, we're giving them $6 billion, but they're only allowed to use it for infrastructure.
They've already said that they can do what they want.
Well, and President Raisi has already said we're going to do whatever we want with the money. But that was the same garbage dog food they were trying to sell us the first time around. This $6 billion is going to go, is being given to the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism. That $6 billion will go to fund its military and its terrorist network to wage war against Americans and against Israelis. It will fund the Russian war in Ukraine because the Iranians will build more drones to give to the Russians to kill Ukrainians who were supposedly trying to defend. Plus, what's the great get that the United States is getting in return? Thankfully, we're getting 5 American citizens released.
Yeah, what does that do?
Nothing, because we are all delighted for these 5 men and women who are illegally detained and their families. It's a great day when they all touch ground in the United States. But what is Joe Biden going to say to the next American family whose son or daughter or aunt or uncle or father is taken hostage by Iran or North Korea or Russia or China? Because they all know if you take American hostages,
they can shake you down for
money.
money.
They will shake you down for $6 billion. And this is on top of $10 billion that the Biden administration allowed Iraq to release to them in connection with oil sales. So that's roughly $16 billion. So This makes absolutely no sense on any level. Now, I encourage the United States Senate. Jack Lew was just nominated by Joe Biden to be America's ambassador to Israel. Jack Lew was one of the part of the Obama-Kerry cabal that went around lying to the American people about what was in the Iran nuclear deal and what the benefits would be from the Iran nuclear deal. Before they allow him to bring that to the floor, of course, Chuck Schumer is going to bring it to the floor for a vote, and the nomination is going to move forward. Senators should demand complete transparency on what is the status. What is the status of the Iran nuclear negotiations? And perhaps even more importantly, what is the status of Robert Malley's suspension of having his security clearance revoked? Robert Malley was John Kerry's right-hand man during the Obama administration in negotiating with Iran, and he was the lead negotiator during the Biden administration with the Iran portfolio until he had his security clearance revoked. Why was it revoked? We're entitled to know. There are rumors out there that the reason it was revoked was because he was leaking intelligence to the Iranians about American covert operations in support of the protesters when Iranians were killing women in the street for taking off their headdresses. If indeed that's true, if Robert Malley was indeed leaking American secrets about American covert operations in a foreign nation, that is treason. And he should be tried for treason. The Senate owes the United States, because Joe Biden won't do it, the Senate owes the United States, citizens of the United States, an explanation of why Robert Malley's security clearance was revoked. And Jack Lew's confirmation hearings could be that leverage to be able to get that information, including what the hell is going on in Iran.
All right, we've gotten the signal, Jesse and Eric, that we have to take a break. When we come back, Jesse, I want to get your thoughts on this Iran hostage swap and the shakedown of billions of dollars, and then we'll move on. This is Let the Record Show. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg with Chairman Jesse Garcia and our special guest, Eric Levine, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist. And we'll be back in a moment. Please stay with us.
It's the Smucker's Uncrustables podcast with your host, Uncrustables. Okay, today's guest is rough around the edges. Please welcome Crust.
Thanks for having me.
Today's topic, he's round with soft, pillowy bread.
Hey.
Filled with delicious PB&J.
Are you talking about yourself?
And you can take him anywhere.
Why'd you invite?
And we are out of time.
Are you really cutting me off?
Uncrustables are the best part of the sandwich. Sorry, Crust.
Of course you love a pint of Ben & Jerry's, but maybe you don't love sharing your pint of Ben & Jerry's. No problem. Now you can share the love with Ben & Jerry's new Scoop-A-Palooza. 28 whole ounces of crowd-pleasing flavor in a single tub. It's an instant ice cream party. And if that means your favorite pint is left just for you, so be it. Ben & Jerry's new 28-ounce Scoop-A-Palooza. Made for sharing in 4 larger-than-life flavors. See benjerry.com/palooza.
We off? 30 seconds of carefree bliss. Oof, like wind in your hair carefree. Oh, like using Clorox Disinfecting All-Purpose Cleaner in the home carefree. Yes. Like dog slobbing on the coffee table and cleaning it with Clorox Carefree. He's on a roll now. Spit toothpaste on the faucet. You got it. You got it. Peanut butter on the light switch. Oh, spritz. Spritz. Clorox, man. Clean feels good.
Okay, we're back.
Use as directed.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
This is Let the Record Show. We're back with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Our special guest, Eric Levine, noted attorney, political commentator, and essayist. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Jesse, opening up this segment, I want to get your thoughts on this Iran deal and what you think we should be doing about it.
it's wrong. It's a mistake. And I echo all the words and the positions that you and Eric have said. You know, we spoke about this last week, and you have to think about this. You know, this new $6 billion, all it does is boosts Tehran, the mullahs, especially at a time when it appears to be weakening. You know, and I'll use the words of a former Iranian hostage, Kylie Gilbert, British and Australian descent. She was recently released and said that these type of activities only incentivizes Tehran to conduct even more hostage taking so that they can basically cash in. The $6 billion being used for infrastructure is all bull. At one point, they were talking about humanitarian issues. At least the Iranians were honest and direct in this one case when they said, no, we're going to spend it any way we want.
Yeah, thank you very much for money. Now go screw yourselves.
Exactly. And, you know, infrastructure is an interesting word. The infrastructure surrounding a nuclear facility would probably fall into that, but that's semantics. But anyway, who's going to enforce it? No one's going to be there to enforce it. And, you know, this was a failed deal when it was first proposed under the Obama administration. It is a failed deal as it's being discussed and in numerous different permutations right now. I do not know the desire of the Biden administration to pump money into the mullahs' pockets. And, you know, Eric is right. The confirmation of the new ambassador, or the proposed ambassador for Israel, should be leveraged by not just Republican senators, but certainly led by them, by all senators, anybody who cares about our relations with Israel and, of course, our democracies and our national security. This is just a wrong deal. And it's just another example on very many long ones, whether it be in the Middle East, Europe, the Pacific, in our own hemisphere with Venezuela and Cuba, that Biden has taken the United States off the board and playing the leadership role and being the superpower that we should be. And now we have bad actors and this new axis of evil that continues to grow, filling in that vacuum that Biden has created.
Eric.
So it's interesting, Jesse, you used the word deal. For us, you know, for the Obama administration, they didn't use the word treaty. It was an executive action.
Exactly.
That way you didn't have to bring it to the Senate for its approval. That was Richard's original point. Of course it's a treaty, and of course it should require the advice and consent and approval of the Senate if you're going to pass it. But now you use the word deal. The Biden administration won't use the word deal. They'll say it's not a deal. And why is that? Because under the 2015 law relating to any a change in the executive deal that Obama made, that change requires Senate approval.
Exactly.
So by saying it's not a deal, they don't have to go back to the Senate and explain what's going on. This is all a way to do this in the dark, to make sure the American people don't see how inane this is, because it is humiliating. And I want to make one final point. What day did they choose to announce this deal of giving $6 billion to the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism? September 11th. Yep. September 11th. I would not be surprised for a second that Iran insisted that that was the day that this be announced, just to humiliate the United States. Joe Biden is an utter disgrace, assuming he knows what's going on.
Well, let me switch gears again, gentlemen, and let me draw your attention to a presidential debate between Barack Obama, the incumbent president, and then former Governor Mitt Romney, who was the Republican candidate for the presidency. And in that debate, which was an unfair debate in my mind, because you had a moderator who was totally tilted towards Obama and hostile to Romney and interrupted a number of times. Obama
to bail out Obama.
To bail out Obama, right. So Romney was warning about the threat to the United States from Russia. He was saying that be very, very wary of Russia because they still have territorial and hegemonic ambitions. And Obama, in his usual condescending, superior manner, said, oh, you know, the Cold War is over. I submit to you, Mr. Obama, and to our listeners, no, the Cold War against Russia was alive and well then, and it's even hotter today. And this is dangerous. We're losing a very good man in the United States Senate because Senator Romney, now from Utah, has announced that he's not running for re-election. And in his announcement that he's not running for re-election, he criticized both Biden and Trump, saying neither one is able or worthy enough to hold the presidency of the United States. And I am saying, as I start off this show by saying, those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. Those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. Weakness invites aggression. Naivete invites having your clock cleaned by your enemies. To not believe that our enemies are out there and are totally geared up to destroy us and marginalize us. We're doing so at our peril. And this is very, very troubling to me. Jesse, what say you?
I completely agree with you. And while I may have my differences with Senator Romney, I mean, it was almost 13 years ago in October. 11 years ago in October when that debate, the third presidential debate took place. And the question was to Romney, what's the biggest geopolitical threat facing America? And he said Russia. And a very, very,
smug.
Smug, thank you, sarcastic Obama said to him almost, quote, you said Russia, not Al-Qaeda, you said Russia. And the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back because the Cold War has been over for 20 years. I think what this demonstrates is that, and then you guys all take this in context. Remember the hot mic moment that Obama had with then President Medvedev of Russia, where he said that he'd have more flexibility over
after the election was
policy
over.
After the election was over.
Well, it's worse than that. He said, if Putin helps me here. He was asking for Putin's help in exchange for concessions on nuclear negotiations.
Absolutely. So think about who's Russia's puppet in this whole issue. Mitt Romney was right. History has demonstrated that he's right. History has demonstrated to us, whether it be in the past, the present, and the future, that Russia will always be and will continue to be, as it continues down its authoritarian path, a threat globally to the United States, economically to the United States, and from a cybersecurity to the United States. They are a political, diplomatic threat. And they need to also always be on that list of those things endangering us. It also demonstrates from this administration to Biden, because he was part of the Obama administration, that they're tone deaf, they're negligent, they really don't know what they're speaking about, despite them putting forward all of Biden's, foreign policy experience on the table as to try and bolster him and when he became vice president. This is a mistake. We've had 4 years where I believe that our foreign policy, peace through strength, and maybe a little bit more strength being put forward under the Trump administration, because it gained our respect of our enemies, and sometimes it flustered our allies, but they knew we were safe, and we collectively were safe. This is the appeasement policy the Democrats take on, and what they do is, to use the judge's words, they use smug comebacks, they use smug language, and they use their partners in big tech and in the mainstream media to cover up their failures on all levels, including foreign policy.
All right, Kevin has given us the sign. We're going to be taking a break. This is Judge Richard Weinberg with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, and Eric Levine, noted commentator, essayist, and attorney. We'll be back for our final segment in just a moment. Please stay with us.
A lot of schools talk about training the cybersecurity workforce of the future, but do they really deliver? My Computer Career has been supplying the IT workforce with thousands of skilled, certified pros for 15 years. Train with the experts in support, networking, or cybersecurity and start your career in months, not years. Upskill even faster. On campus or live online, qualified students may get financial aid, including the GI Bill. My Computer Career. Accredited, acclaimed, effective. Take the free career evaluation at mycomputercareer.edu.
Do you have over $10,000 in credit card debt? If you're feeling the financial impact with unprecedented economic challenges, DebtBlue is here for you. With DebtBlue's Success Guarantee, you pay nothing unless your debt is reduced or completely resolved.
I'm just living sky high right now. I'm very thankful for it, and the team at DebtBlue are phenomenal. They're able to work with you. They're great.
Call for your free debt resolution information now. 800-200-6895. 800-200-6895.
Talk Radio 77 WABC. This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
This is Let the Record Show. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party and Eric Levine, our special guest, noted attorney, commentator, and political essayist. Eric, you had a few thoughts when we took the break.
Yeah, Jesse almost made me fall off my chair in laughter when he was referring to Joe Biden's foreign policy experience. And I can guarantee you that as Joe Biden runs for re-election, the one thing he won't talk about is his foreign policy experience.
Why? He's done such a great job, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has not gotten a single foreign policy decision. Was it Robert Gates said in the last 40 years? Now it's about the last 50 years. If you go back to the catastrophic surrender in Afghanistan, of course, the Iran nuclear deal negotiations, there's not a single thing that Joe Biden has gotten right. And to the extent he's gotten anything right, it's always $1 short and a day late. But just coming back to the point about Russia, like any cancer, if you don't treat it, it metastasizes. So when Mitt Romney was referring to Russia as the single greatest geopolitical threat to the United States when he was debating with Obama, that was clearly true at the time. But it is metastasized. China is now the single greatest geopolitical threat facing the United States, but it's much more serious than that. There's a new axis of evil led by China, with Russia, with Iran, and with North Korea. So it's not a matter of just dealing with Russia in isolation, Iran in isolation, China in isolation, North Korea in isolation. We must now deal with them in their totality. The United States has not faced a threat like this, of an axis of evil that will threaten the American-led world order since World War II, of Germany, Italy, and Japan. And had Obama listened to Romney, had Romney won, and we had dealt with Russia as we should have at the time, we would not be facing the same geopolitical threats that we are today. Russia would not be as aggressive. North Korea would not be as aggressive. China would not be as aggressive. The general axis itself may not even exist. So I think it just tells us that as threats start to grow, you must deal with them, even if it's unpleasant at the time. You must deal with them right away before they start to metastasize and become even greater. The United States American-led world order is on the verge of collapse, and a dawn of a world order led by tyrannies is rising. We're going to have to stop it. We're going to have to stop it by facing up to the reality of what's going on.
Well, it's even worse than that, and I want to get Jesse's thoughts about this. One of the things I've been concerned about, and you've named the right countries, and you're absolutely right that they're part of this axis, but let's not forget that in our hemisphere we had something called the Monroe Doctrine. And the Monroe Doctrine, to say it's under attack is probably one of the great understatements that I can make. The Monroe Doctrine is shriveling away before our eyes. You have the incursion of all these South American, Latin American countries of totalitarian socialist and communist regimes with the infiltration by Russia and China there and Iran. And it's a devastating blow to the United States to not only worry about everything we've talked about earlier, but in our own hemisphere, we have these threats. What say you, Jesse?
We've been saying that. I mean, Democrats have had this obsession with destroying and sidelining the Monroe Doctrine since 2013, since the Obama administration. John Kerry declared then that the end of the Monroe Doctrine at the Organization of American States. I do believe that DeSantis was right. China is now in a foothold of Cuba. Iran is in Venezuela. Where is our new Monroe Doctrine? Where is the enforcement of our Monroe Doctrine? And that axis of evil is self-created by the ineptness and the and making the American presence on the global stage as a global power and influencer shrunken under the Biden administration and Democrats. They want more globalization. They don't want America to lead, and we need to lead. We have demonstrated that the time when we have had the most peace is when America has led this, has been the leader on the global stage. This is a problem because now we have the enemies. This new axis of evil that we've allowed to be created is now in our hemisphere and is within miles of us, as opposed to tens of thousands of miles of us.
And one of the points that just makes my eyes bleed and my head explode, and I've said this before, but I just can't get over it. So you have the axis of evil doing everything they're doing in the Middle East and Europe and in Asia. We have the undermining of our influence and military, national security exposure in our hemisphere. But right here in the territory of the United States, you have no recognition that it makes no sense to have China buying up lands, agricultural lands, and lands near our military bases. What's wrong with us? Are we totally out of our minds? How dare we allow these people who are dedicated to our destruction, dedicated to our domination by them, to buy up our land near our military bases? How dare this administration say it's no big deal that the balloons flew over territories of the United States right near the military bases, and they just laughed it off. They want you to forget about it. They want the American people to have political and cultural amnesia. They want us to forget that this administration has continuously failed us day after day after day after day, and we're a serious threat. And why is it irresponsible for somebody to say that this administration has sold out the United States for whatever reason, have undermined our position, and you're going to wake up and you find out they're in our hemisphere, but in our very, very lands? Eric, last thought on this.
Just two quick thoughts. So the first is, from the Biden administration, as like with the Obama administration, horrible things may happen to the United States. Their goal is to make sure it just doesn't happen while we're here. Let's push the Iran nuclear bomb to the next administration, where, we'll lie to the American people as to whether or not it's going to be a legal path to a nuclear bomb. But if they don't launch it while we're in office, we can blame somebody else. That's the first thing. The second is, let's remember what the progressive radical left agenda's view of the United States is. That America is systemically racist and evil. And therefore, the country must be transformed. And it gets transformed in two ways. One is, we must bring the American military home, because the projection of power abroad is merely a projection of that American evilness that we need to protect the world from. So let's bring everybody home. The second, of course, is the transformations that we're seeing in our schools and our businesses, the social justice, the woke agenda, and which views everything through the lenses of race and gender. So why fight it? Why fight it? We're all in favor of a world government. Everything they do is towards a world government, whether it's the climate agenda, whether it's the CDC and the WHO. Everything is for an international organization that creeps into even the international tax, the base 15 international tax for businesses. So it is critically important that we secure our border, we identify our enemies, we identify our allies, we oppose our enemies, we support our allies, and that we confront the evils and the challenges that face the country. It's not a matter of saying, let's wait and see if we can push it off to the next administration. True leaders deal with the issues and the threats that face the country at the time.
Well, I want to thank my wonderful co-host and good friend, Jesse Garcia, chairman of the Republican Party, my other good friend, special guest, Eric Levine, noted attorney, commentator, and political essayist. This has been Let the Record Show. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. I want to thank you, gentlemen,
If you're having problems with your septic system and you're tired of spending so much money each year to have it pumped, then SeptiClean is the answer for you. SeptiClean is an advanced specially formulated blend of bacteria used in the treatment of home and commercial septic systems. The breakdown of waste in your system relies on biological activity of naturally occurring bacteria. SeptiClean restores the natural biological process in your septic system and boosts the existing biological activity. SeptiClean is completely safe on all plumbing and can help prevent expensive emergencies in pumping. SeptiClean has approximately 6 to 100 times the bacteria count of other leading off-the-shelf brands in a 1-year supply. SeptiClean comes in a water-soluble pack, which you flush down the toilet once a month with no mess or stress. Save time, money, and maintenance on your septic system. Find SeptiClean at Emporium True Value Hardware on Main Street in Sag Harbor or visit micro-tab.com. That's micro-tabb.com. Micro-tabb.com.